once again a little bit early, which is nice. I can make sure things going there, and yeah, I'm wearing a Kentucky Ballistic shirt. Did I? I think I may have worn this before. I don't remember. It just says upcoming. Still on YouTube. It should be live though. There. Mute. Maybe I'm just too quick. Okay, yeah, there. Okay, cool. Let's try that. Right. Yeah, a couple minutes to vamp before actually getting into talking about Star Trek, the animated series, the Ambergris element, as I recall. Yes, that's the name of it. So, 12th episode made, 13th aired. Let me just think. Anything interesting from this week to mention? Like, no, I haven't been able to watch a new movie. I mean, I'm looking down there because that's where the Abbott Costellos are. That's what I'm going through currently. Although I've got so many things. I finished processing because I take the media off the discs and put it on my server, and I'll recompress them so they're smaller, fit on there better. Finished getting through the Alfred Hitchcock movies that I've gotten, so I'm now at 15. I think it is total. It's 14 or 15. Actually, wait, no, I take that back. It's more than that. I just realized I need to make an adjustment there. Hang on. Let me log in and take care of that. I got a little bit of time. Because I just remembered that I actually do have some Alfred Hitchcocks that were not part of that collection. Okay. Yeah. Here. Yeah, that's one of them. The Wrong Man. Because it's not in the main collection that I've just gotten. Alright. Yeah, a total of 19. Suspicion. Already got The Wrong Man. Trouble with Harry. And too much. Dial for Murder. I confess. Okay, those are them. So that's 19. 19 Alfred Hitchcock movies I've got from, let me see, Suspicion, most of them are from some recent collections that I got that are both 4K and Blu-ray. But I also bought a Warner Archive 4-pack that included a number, including Suspicion. I Confess, Dial for Murder, that's the one I really wanted. And what was the other one? The Wrong Man, that's right. And so now I've got Suspicion, Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, Rope, I Confess, Dial for Murder, Rear Window, The Trouble with Harry, The Man Who Knew Too Much, The Wrong Man, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, The Birds, Marnie, Torn Curtain, Topaz, Frenzy, and Family Plot. Look, some of these are incredibly good movies. Like Dial for Murder, so good. So is Rear Window. Oh wow, those were actually the same year. I did not realize that. So good. Anyway, that taken care of, and it's 9:01, so I can talk about the episode here. The Ambergris element. It is an odd one. I'm just saying it is a little odd. In fact, how I even put when I decided my recommendation, how I even put it was it kind of felt like a combination of tropes that that's not necessarily a good thing. We'll get to that. So yeah, it starts with they are visiting the planet Argo. You know what? I just realized I want to check something quickly. Okay, let me turn this off. Okay, so that should be, yeah, okay. I forget to go in and turn off in Rumble the echo cancellation, which I don't need because it's just me. I don't have I would wear headphones if I were playing any audio, but there's nothing being played, so that's not necessary. And I don't need the noise reduction because I'm running that in OBS. Anyway, so they are visiting the planet Argo because it went through some major... I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It would technically be tectonic, but I mean, yeah, I'll get to that. But it went through this stuff a while ago. And there's another Federation planet that is likely to undergo the same things, and they want to learn from Argo so they can hopefully save people that are on the other planet. So what is it that happened? Well, apparently there was a period of intense tectonic activity, so a bunch of earthquakes, that caused much of it to fall under the ocean, such that there's basically only one major landmass left. The rest are just like the peaks of the tallest mountains. This is a trope, and it is annoying, especially because of how they then end up depicting it. But I'll get to that. I'll get to that. So they've, sorry, that cough is still hanging on. It's mostly gone, but still there. So in order to explore this world, they bring a shuttle down. It's a special shuttle. I don't believe it was said initially, but I may have been writing up notes when it was stated. So I was a little confused, and it's like, that's not how shuttles work. But later on, it was identified as an aqua shuttle, and that they only had one of them, so it's like, okay, it is special. Because this thing not only landed in the water, which is like, okay, yeah, I guess I can accept a shuttlecraft being able to land in the water. You'd think it would still sink, though, because there's no reason for any shuttlecraft to be designed to not sink in water. I mean, they're meant to be in space or in the air, just landing on the ground. So, in water, I don't know. But it's floating there until they decide to submerge. I'm gonna get a drink of water. So they submerge. They start going around, and they also encounter a sea monster. But I want to just, as I was thinking about it, because I'm technical, okay? This is what my brain is going to do. I'm just wondering, would a shuttle even work underwater? Because I am not sure about at this time period for the original series and animated series. But later on, you would have... No, they did have impulse. Well, Final Frontier, the shuttlecraft has impulse. I'm just going to assume that impulse is available. Well, impulse would be like thrusters as well, in that both are basically rockets, not jets. And primarily the main difference between a rocket and a jet consumes oxygen from its environment, from the air, while a rocket has its own supply. That's the main thing that we think about. But there's also another, is that a rocket is purely producing purely producing pressure in one direction, right? Like, when the rocket is burning, it's pushing exhaust out that way, and that's it. A jet is pushing it out, but it's also pulling some in from the front. So there's less of a pressure differential between the front and the back. Wait, no. There's a greater pressure differential, sorry. Because it's lowering the pressure in the front because it's sucking it in. And then still producing thrust at the back. Yes. Maybe... No, I don't know if density would be a better way to put it, but it still is. You're removing material from the front and spitting out the back with a jet. But thrusters would be like rockets. Impulse is like rockets. So, I'm not sure how well that would work underwater. Because underwater with a propeller, it's like, well, how does a propeller work? It's drawing the mass from in front of it to behind it. So, you're not dealing with as much of a pressure difference like you would with a rocket. Because with a rocket, you're just going to be pushing against all the mass in front of you. But with the propellers on a boat, you are now actually like pulling the mass in front of you and spitting out behind. Not as effectively as what they described for the Caterpillar drive in Hunt for Red October, but still is. You're removing mass from the front, so that's less you're having to push through. And as I was thinking about it, it's like, yeah, I don't think you could take a shuttle underwater. That then also does make me wonder, what about... Because there is that one episode of Star Trek Voyager where they are they're at a world where another planet's water was completely removed from it, but put around this massive artificial gravity device in order to basically make a water world. And both the Delta Flyer, it initially was what was converted to be able to work underwater, and Voyager are converted so they can actually operate underwater. Now, Voyager... Well, they both have a somewhat aerodynamic design. Voyager was, in fact, designed to be able to land on the surface of the planet. And I can believe that just the sheer power of a starship's engines would be enough that it wouldn't. It would just be pushed through this not a problem. And then the Delta Flyer is actually somewhat aerodynamic, so it would also have things a little easier. But both would still be having that issue. They're just having to move a lot of air out of the way. So I do kind of wonder if a shuttle could, in fact, be capable of that without special design. I don't know. But it is the Aqua Shuttle. It has a special design. Let's get back to the episode. So they encounter this sea monster. And initially it's like, that's not good. Shoot it with the phasers when it attacks, because it's huge. And that works for a little bit. But then there's 4 people on board. Kirk, Spock, Bones, and a random red shirt. When the sea monster wakes back up, it starts attacking them. It's like, well, that's not good. And it does such damage to the shuttlecraft that Bones and the red shirt are actually thrown out. But Kirk and Spock are still in there. And the sea monster actually grabs the shuttle and drags it down. This doesn't really make much sense with what follows, but for 2 days they can't find Kirk and Spock. But then they suddenly do. They're just like washed up on a beach, and when Bones is there examining them, it says that everything about them is functioning normally except for their lungs. And then we also see that Kirk has webbed hands. So they have been converted into having to breathe underwater, so they have gills and such, which... Do I want to... Yeah, I should. So in order to take care of them, they put them in a water tank up on the ship and, try to figure things out. But one criticism that it's not major, okay? Because nothing is really made of it here. It's just they have gills now. They can't breathe in air normally. That it's just left at that. It is a problem, yes, but it's kind of left at that. But it just reminds me of probably because I'm still working through. I'm almost done. I'm in the. Let me show you. That's where I am. I'm so close to the end of reviewing this thing. In Yaira 2, Yaira and another character named Yeshua, both are from the same world, so the same species. Yeshua makes a comment about highly evolved species know how to breathe underwater. Or draw air from water, draw oxygen from water, something like that. And it's an insult to humans. And it's just like, I actually did decide when writing this, as like, actually, no, that would not be true. And, I thought about it, not that I am an expert in biology, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense that what he's saying is categorically false. Because oxygen, at least for human bodies, basically all bodies on Earth, oxygen is one of the fuels that we use, right? It's more involved than that, but it's a fuel. We all need it. Well, I guess except for plant life, but moving on, animal life. We need that. The more powerful the species, and human beings are pretty powerful. Yes, we're not always the strongest, not necessarily the fastest and such, but we do have the most advanced minds, and our brains do also need oxygen. The most advanced ones are going to consume the most oxygen. Which is easier to draw oxygen out of? The air or the water? It's easier to draw out of the air. So if you're saying that, the most highly evolved are going to be able to draw it out of the water, it's like, drawing out of the water means you're going to be getting less oxygen. So your capabilities are going to be less than if just left to breathing in the air. So it was one of those things where it's like, no, actually you would be more highly evolved. You would more highly evolve in the oxygen, not necessarily oxygen rich, although I'm pretty sure the atmosphere probably does have more oxygen in it than the water. But it's just abundance of oxygen means an abundance of fuel, which means an abundance of the energy needed for life and for development of that life. So becoming more highly evolved, it makes more sense that's going to happen in the atmosphere. How that relates to this is Spock and Kirk should actually have a lowered metabolism because they will not be getting as much oxygen as they would normally. And their bodies would have adapted for air, not for air breathing, not water breathing. So, yeah, it's not a point in the episode, though. So it's not a criticism. Well, it's not a true criticism of the episode. But it's just, the thought did occur to me. It's like, yeah, I thought it through before. Why not talk about it here? And I could be wrong, but it's just, it makes sense, though, that because it is so much hard. I mean, think about it. What are the largest species of water life? Whales. What are they? They're air breathers, right? They're not water breathers. And they're the largest. They're the most powerful as well. At least I'm pretty sure they are the most powerful as far as the blue whale is very impressive, okay? More impressive than any shark. Granted, not a predator like a shark is, but still very powerful. Very powerful these things are. So yeah, it just, anyway. So coming back to this, they even found it's like, okay, you've been mutated. We got no idea how. Like, Bones is, I got nothing. I mean, there's clearly a hormone in your bodies that it has caused this, but, how? Which, well, they get credit for referring to it as a hormone. Because, yes, it is hormones that will trigger various genetic things to occur. Right? So, hormone is released in the body. Your cells are like, oh, I see this thing. It's triggering me to do something. Hey, genes, what do I do? And then reads the genes like, okay, that's what I do. Okay, so that much, you're good. I approve of that. Glad to see that. But there is technically the, why would the Kirk's human body and Kirk's human genes and Spock's human genes know that? I guess they had to have edited the genes, but that's not really what we'll talk about later. This is not really a major point, though. It's just I'm technical again. Sorry. All right, so getting back to it. So they need to figure out, well, this was not something random. This was not something natural. And where they were injected with the mutagen was in specific areas. Where it's like, okay, this would be the most effective places to hit you, which means this was done by intelligent life. We have no signs of intelligent life, though, because all our sensors tell us is, there's fish. And Spock points out the whole... sensors must be wrong. We have evidence they are there, so we have to get to them. Because if they did this, potentially they can undo it. And then it's like, okay, yeah, but the Aqua Shuttle, apparently they only have one of them, is damaged, is destroyed. We can't use that. But then Kirk's like, we can breathe underwater now, so we'll just go and find them ourselves. So they do that. Although I do also want to mention that they do eventually show Scotty also underwater in one of the habitat, using one the environmental belts. So it's like, okay, I mean, it might not be that effective, or maybe it's limited, but it still is technically you can just explore underwater with that. Anyway, so they go down there, and they eventually manage to find the species there. The Aquins or the Noquins. At one point, it sounded like there was the N in there. I don't know. And initially, the group that they encounter are like, just leave us alone, okay? I mean, it's like the young ones kept you alive anyway. It's like, the hell are they talking about? So Kirk and Spock are like, let's follow after these people that just left, because we still need answers. So they go a little bit further and encounter that there is a whole civilization there with all this architecture. And they go further, are eventually caught and brought before the tribunal there. And this is a bit curious. So we finally get an explanation for what happened. Basically, they were found, they were endangered, their life was in danger, so they intentionally mutated Kirk and Spock, saving their lives. Both, I assume, as far as the whole, so they can breathe underwater instead of just putting them on the surface. But also because they are air breathers, and there's ancient records basically saying that, hey, you need to hate them. And some on the tribunal, which later on is basically said that it's the older ones, are really, really steadfast, very rigid in holding the old ways, that say, hey, you need to hate them and just kill them. But instead, it was decided, well, yeah, we're not killers, we're not going to kill you, but if we do this, it removes you as a threat. And also, preserve your life and get rid of you. But they also then, wiped their memory so they could never return. So, and they didn't bring this up, but I'd be like, you mutated us. You made us into something different than what we are. You know we breathe air. You made it so we cannot possibly breathe air anymore. And you think we're not going to come searching for you? Doesn't matter if we remember it or not. You think we're just going to walk away from that? It does also eventually get kind of explained. There's statements made. It's not explicit that this is the situation, but it's very clear this is the situation. It's a strong implication that they have no idea of space travel, these Aquans. And we also get a bit of their history. So basically, we get a little bit then, we also get more later. That really explains it all. So prior to the world going through all the tectonic damage that sunk half of a civilization, this is key, that was half, they lived above ground. They were air breathers. Half of it sunk, and so what they did then was intentionally mutate the population so they can survive underwater. Okay? And initially they had to intentionally do the mutation, but then it got into their species, the actual genetics. So the mutation wasn't needed anymore, it was just permanently there. But apparently the time period of the species, half the species being under the water, half the species above, it was long enough for them to forget. And so they lost communication with each other, and then when they encountered each other again, it led to war. Eventually the air breathers died out because, well, the majority of the planet is underwater, so the Aquans survived, but they maintain this hatred. And to a degree, it also seems that they either failed to advance anymore, or they actually went backwards. Because it does seem that some of them are so strongly adhering to the what has been ordained, so the Ordanians or something like that is how they actually refer to that group. Like to them, the idea of anything new, it really seems like no, we can't possibly believe it. The whole, if it isn't in this book, it doesn't exist kind of thinking, which is very much backwards. But anyway, they talk with them, and the Aquans decide that we're not going to kill you, but we're going to get rid of you. So they put them in a net, in a mesh, and just leave them above water. So it's like, yeah, you're killing them. But one of the women on the tribunal, she comes and she frees them. Well, tries to. Initially fails, and Kirk is having a hard time breathing for obvious reasons. Tells her, because when they went down, there was like a small, it's actually in the trivia, the Gib? Hang on. Yeah, Scouter Gig. There we go. Was also on the water there. Like, they came down with it. So they know there's a search party around. And he tells her, go find them. They'll help. And that's where we do see Scotty. They come over, they free them, and now Kirk and Spock can be in the water along with the woman. And so they are talking, trying to figure things out. And a few things are going on at this point. One is the whole, she explains the history of, yes, the mutations were intentional, but then they became just part of the species. So, and also, I don't remember exactly how the notion of the ruins came up, but basically, yes, there are ruins of the ancient civilization, the now dead civilization, such that she is forbidden to go to. She will show them where it is, but she is forbidden to enter. But they can go in and try to find the records that they need in order to undo their mutation. So there's that information. There's also, Scotty tells them, the ship's sensors have picked up that there's another earthquake coming, and it's a big one. And it is right by where the underwater city is. That's a problem. Because it could end up destroying the city. Which you would think that with this planet that it has all that tectonic activity, that the species would have figured that out and have buildings designed to withstand that, and also just multiple places. But anyway, so Spock and Kirk go in, find the ruins, and exploring them, they enter one where it's like, oh yeah, this just happens to be the medical lab. I mean, to be fair, the building did look, kind of fancier, so it makes kind of sense it would hold fancy stuff. But I don't care for, I mean, fine, you have architecture there that looks what we would recognize as Grecian. It's like, okay, fine, I'll accept that. Because it's an attractive architecture. It's reasonable that somebody else would just happen to find that also pleasing to the eye, and so design their architecture that way. I'm okay with that. However, they actually find a variant of the... I'm trying to remember the name of it. Nope, can't think of it. It's would have been Aeschyptus's staff. I think that's right. Might have that wrong as well. But the staff with the snake winding around, and sometimes with wings also attached. That's what they find there. So a symbol purely out of Greco-Roman mythology. Okay, that's where it's from. It's on this completely alien world. That I have problems with, because no. And Spock even mentions that, oh, look at this, it's so similar to our ancient medical symbol. And it looks like, this concerns the mutations. It's like, no, I'm sorry. As I said, architecture, I can understand that, because even on Earth, I mean, yes, there are definite differences, but you still see, like, with the in Mesoamerica, the pyramids. Yes, very different in certain ways from the Egyptian pyramids, but pyramids nonetheless, which at least show that there's a recognition about the structural design of pyramids and reasons to work with those in two completely disconnected civilizations. Okay, and I feel like there's pyramids in other locations as well, but still is. I guess another way to put it is, although true, that's technically cheating, that the idea of artificial mountains and how to design them, how to build them, exist in both. And there's also that element of they're still four-sided. And I know that may sound like, well, yeah, obviously it's four-sided. It's like, why? Why couldn't they be three-sided? Be less material, five-sided, six-sided. But no, both four-sided. So they can be something, well, even though you're disconnected, you still come up with something similar that you like. So anyway. So they take these containers that I'm thinking, oh, it's got the medicine that. No, the scrolls. So this species has been underwater. I don't remember if it's said, but we're probably talking centuries. I was like multiple generations at least. But we're to believe that the ruins of this civilization are surviving underwater. To such a degree that they can be recovered and analyzed on board the ship. Paper in air isn't going to last that long. And you're saying water? I mean, true, it's sealed, but it's still... I think they got lucky. Very lucky. Because there's also, I'm saying, all the things that could disturb it. I mean, just look at the Titanic. Is that... Yes, that would be over 100 years old now. But look at how much damage that has suffered. Just from being in the water with all the life forms around that. I mean, yeah. So anyway, they bring it up. Universal Translator is able to do its job. Which actually reminds me of something. Okay. I get the Universal Translator is a piece of practical technology in science fiction. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, no, there is no actual explanation for how it works. And legitimately, it does annoy me that there even is an attempt. Because, like, no, just it's like artificial gravity. It's not there because it makes sense. It's there because we don't have... If you want to make a television show or movie, you need the people walking on ground, and you need the people being able to talk to each other. But the Universal Translator, it doesn't make sense why that would work on written... and anything written, because what people have come up with for the explanation of universal translators is it is purely person to person. That it's reading the emotions of the other person and then using that to translate into your brain, and then that's how you're able to interpret what they're saying. So it's more or less thought reading, mind reading. No minds involved when reading paper. Yeah. Yeah, and also technically that doesn't align with crap. I might be able to find it. Season 1 episode of Deep Space Nine. No, it wouldn't have been that one. That one. Maybe that one. The Forsaken? No, that's not it. That's not it. Okay. That shouldn't be it either. I thought it was season 1. Let me just look at it this way so I can get the actual images. It's yeah, I know it's not that one. Wouldn't be that one. Or that one. Yeah, that one I knew it wasn't. I'm thinking about the one where there is a species from the Gamma Quadrant that comes in and is like, hey, we think that Bajor is meant to be our new home. I guess it's not season 1. I thought it was. Okay, hang on. Okay, it might be this one. Let me... Yes, Sanctuary. Okay. Because in that, because they are from the Delta Quadrant... I keep saying that wrong. Because they are from the Gamma Quadrant. The Universal Translator, it takes a while to figure out what they're saying, and so they're stumbling trying to communicate with them. Eventually, single words start coming through, and it's like, Kira's like, yes, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Then eventually, everything is there. So it's like, again, that doesn't make sense with the emotion thing. So it's a practical technology, just leave it at that. Because then that is also obviously it can translate text because we just need to translate the text. It's serving just this practical purpose to tell the story. But reviewing that, it's like, all right, so yeah, I see what they did here. I now know what we can do. What would be the antitoxin? What would be the anti-mutagen? Yeah, I see what to do here. Okay, what do we do? You know that sea monster? Ah, crap. What about the sea monster? We need its venom. Yeah, I mean that's legitimately it. The sea monster. They have to go and hunt one down and be able to get the venom from its teeth. Well, to do that, sorry, they need help. So Kirk and Spock go back to the Aquans and actually speak with the woman as well, and some of the other youths are like, you know what? I don't know. Well, initially they're like, I don't know. I mean, it's bad enough we're talking to you. We get in serious trouble for this. But somebody's like, dudes, are we just going to always do what has been ordained? Is that really all we're going to do? Come on. Let's help them. So they do end up helping, and they are able to get enough of the venom to make up the anti-mutagen, at least some. Not a huge amount, because Bones isn't able to dial in the exact amount needed. But I mean, before applying it to Kirk. But I mean, it's obviously it's going to prove the right amount. Okay, come on, we know it's going to happen. So they do that, and this is all in time before the earthquake is going to hit that will destroy the city. So they have a plan. But there's two parts to it. One is what the actual thing is they're going to do. The other is they actually bring up the woman and the elder tribune, who, even though he is of the older generation, so you'd expect him to be with the ordination people, he is measured. He is balanced. So he will listen to both sides, and he's not going to just go with, well, because it was written in the records, that's what we should do. It's like, no. He's going to think about it. They bring them up and have them in these helmet things, to basically fishbowls. They have fishbowls on their head. But they are brought up to be shown what's going on. To be shown, yes, we are from a different ship. We are not we are air breathers, but we're not the ones that you need to be concerned with. And also, given understanding of the history, that there's no air breathers left. None of their enemies have survived. But then from the Enterprise, and this annoyed me later on, was okay, if we fire the phasers in specific spots, that will shift where the epicenter of the quake will be. I'm not completely sure if that would be correct with plate tectonics. That if you just weaken an area over here, then instead of the energy of the quake being here, it'll be over here. I'm not sure if that necessarily works. But it's not unreasonable. So, yes, I'll accept that. But I could believe a geologist would be like, yeah, no, that because of how the energy is actually being built up, the stress that leads to the earthquake, you can't just divert that. That has to be here. I guess, to like a seam, if the stress is building up here on the seam, eventually tempting it to rip, cutting a hole here isn't going to relieve that. Right? It's still going to be over here. Anyway, so they intend to do that so that then it shifts over and spares the city. It is later mentioned by Spock that's like, oh yes, that's the information we needed to know in order to help this planet, because, hey, we had no idea that would work. It's like, you didn't know this was going to work? Why did you do it? I mean, I get the whole, you running out of options, but it's like, this isn't appropriate. Or even if it is okay, yes, this solution would work, why wouldn't need to test it at this planet? And it seems like, oh yeah, we'll just do this and this is what worked. Then you already knew the information to save the other world. It's not a big deal. What? It just, that the line about, like, oh yes, we've learned that this is possible is so stupid, because it's just so many ways you could learn that, and it is very dangerous. But in any case, they do that, proving that they are not the Arquans' enemies. They then go down to the planet, and I'm assuming it is that the earthquake that ended up happening brought some of the land that was underwater above water. And now while they're talking, the Arquans have also decided they're going to take advantage of the anti-mutagen as well to convert some of their population back to air breathers, who can then go onto the surface, go into these ruins that have now been recovered, and start trying to repair them, and also make all the medical advances there available to the Federation when they come wanting to study them. So it's like, that sounds nice and all, but it's like, I don't like this whole, because earthquakes aren't going to cause, like, just half of a continent or so to just go underwater. Okay, I'm fairly certain that's not how that works. It's like, California is not going to fall into the ocean as much as we may want it to. It's not going to do that. Okay? Especially not that one, because that's just like that. It's not like that. It's a transverse fault. It's not a subduction zone. But it's like, that, no. Because it's also, if more of the landmass goes under the water, then that's also displacing more of the water. I mean, it doesn't, you need more water for that to happen, not just things to suddenly, like, move and go under. No, that's not how it works. It just, it's so annoying. Then the idea that, oh yeah, another earthquake brings it back. It's like, no. I mean, I can understand, like, rivers will change their paths. You want to say a river changed and now has swallowed up an entire city. It's like, okay, that I can understand. Kind of happens to New Orleans every now and then. Because if they don't manage, the levee system, like that legitimately is what happened there. With, that was Katrina, right? Because it is one of those things, the Mississippi River, it's a powerful river. Rivers change how they flow. But But we have basically so locked down how it flows that it's not always happy about that. And with Katrina overwhelming the systems that were not being properly maintained, they basically allowed the Mississippi to start flowing the way it wanted to, and that meant you had a lot of that power of the Mississippi going places we didn't want it to. So, yeah, it's like, that makes sense. I can see a river submerging a city. I can't see an ocean doing that just because an earthquake happened, okay? Not permanently. I mean, a tidal wave, sure, but not this, okay? It's another one of those tropes I just find annoying. I mean, at least it's like, because the Minoan Society. Society? Civilization, let's go with that. I'm pretty sure that's one that people like to assume is what is referenced by the Egyptian stories of Atlantis. That is one thing that I know. Sounds kind of weird. Wait, isn't Atlantis a Greek story? It's actually Egyptian. I don't remember who it was that was in Egypt and heard the story and wrote it down. But it is actually, technically the story's origin, I think it was a sailor even at that, but still, it technically comes out of Egypt. But it is also one of those things where so few records exist, we don't know what level of accuracy there is there, and it's possible that it is an even older story that would be somewhere else, and it just got moved around, or maybe it was originally a Greek story. Dude just hadn't heard before, and I don't... Yeah, screw it. Why not look it up? Atlantis legend origin. Since I can't quite remember it makes sense to just look it up. Okay, it is from Plato. And one thing also curious is its location sometimes varies. Because yes, the Atlantic Ocean is named for Atlantis, named for that myth, but it doesn't mean that's accurate. Okay, apparently it was in the original stories was saying it was past the Pillars of Hercules, which are the Straits of Gibraltar, which would put in the into the Atlantic Ocean. Uh, okay, I want to know more about the origin, although that's not telling me. All right. Come on. Really, I'm not. All right, fine. I'm not seeing with just scanning through the thing I actually want. Um, but in any case, one of the theories is that is a reference to this Minoan, I think it's Minoan species, Minoan civilization that was hmm, uh, that would have been powerful, but they happened to build their civilization on a planet with a volcano, and that ended up not going too well for them. When it eventually erupted, which would have destroyed a portion of the island, so going under the water makes some sense, but that's not a... It's like, oh, earthquake happened. That's not how that works. It's really not. So as I said, yeah, it's just tropes. Combination of tropes that is annoying. So, and that is really the main reason why, and also there's some more stuff, but I want to finish. I want to get to this. So yeah, I give it a possibly flavored failure to recommend. So that's a 1 using the numeric labels. Because it is interesting, but it's just the tropes are kind of a problem, and it also doesn't. Some of the other ones, it felt like if they had more time, it would be better. This one doesn't feel like that. More time as in more time in the episode. If it were a longer episode, that doesn't feel like it here, because some of the stuff, it's not well, if we expand on it, there'd be benefit here. It's like, no, it's just kind of silly on its own. More time would be to completely change it, which would be completely changing the episode, so it's actually not that good an episode, to me at least. So yeah, if it's on, I'll watch it, but it's not I would seek it out. Definitely kind of that. Yeah, that's right. With the whole mutation thing, this is another one of those sci-fi tropes that is annoying with the whole, mutation, that can happen immediately. And then we can undo it just as fast. No? No? Why do people think that? The mutations would happen so quickly. I mean, let me put it like this. For a mutation to be realized, to manifest in a body, you need the cells with the mutation to reproduce enough to replace the healthy ones, the normal ones, right? What's it for our skin? A month? Or all the old cells to die and be replaced? That's a month? I don't remember what it is for blood. I mean, that definitely gets cycled more frequently. Stomach lining, I think that might also be a month. I don't quite remember. Obviously, the uterine lining for women, that's a month. Bones are longer. If I remember correctly, it is about 7 years, actually, for every cell in your body to be replaced, except for the crystal lens of the eye, your teeth, which I actually sometimes wonder if that's true or not, because I actually, I think it was this tooth, the root. Oh, I'm trying to remember now. It's been so long. But basically the roots of one of my front teeth broke. Now, fortunately, I had braces at the time, so I didn't lose the tooth. And once the wire was replaced, it was pulled back into place, and it's healed now. But it still is wait. The root healed, so clearly your teeth can heal, can be repaired. It doesn't make sense that those are fixed. But the other end, I know this is weird. I don't know if I've talked about this in one of these videos. Your Achilles tendon. Of all things, your Achilles tendon doesn't change. It is the same as when you were born. I don't know why. I really don't. But that's what it is. And how we know that is because of Chernobyl. So, Chernobyl happens and puts a bunch of radioisotopes into the air. There's a lot less reason to be concerned about that than you think. Radiation is very normal. Elevated levels is a problem. Elevated levels in the wrong places, even worse problem. But radiation is completely normal. I mean, we get exposed to radiation all the time. Don't worry about it. But this is mainly, hey, it changed the average amount of radiation and the specific kinds of radiation, or rather the specific isotopes that we're exposed to every day. I mean, and here, just to help prove my point, the whole carbon dating, how does that work? Because I still eat things, I'm still alive, and so I'm able to ingest materials, ingest foods, that include carbon, I think it's 14. That means that the supply of the carbon-14 in my body is constantly being reset, so it's staying at a certain level, right? I mean, it technically does vary, but for the most part, it's staying at the same level. When I die, because now that can't be refreshed, it starts diminishing because it is a radioisotope. It does decay over, I think its half-life is like 2,200 years or something. Anyway, just my point being that we do normally consume radioactive materials. And for the most part, it's not a problem. Some, yes, it is a problem, but not always. Anyhow, Chernobyl put so many radioisotopes into the atmosphere over such a large area that it changed the average radioisotope consumption that people would have. Not in a way that would impact their health necessarily. Yes, some, but many, no. It's actually one of those funny things. When I've seen it talked about, it has been a while. There is no statistically provable. Is that I'm trying to remember the specific language. To show that anyone outside of the facility itself necessarily had any negative impacts from it. I know that sounds weird, that sounds wild, that sounds false, but it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, but if you're like, oh, but look, we have these elevated levels of cancer here, it's like, but you also had elevated testing, such that we're actually it clouds it enough that it's still technically within margin of error. Anyway, it put, because of the new radioisotope profile, now pregnant women especially, were consuming then a different amount of it, a different radioisotopes than even pregnant women from a year before, so that then the children could be studied and find that, hey, there's a different profile here. But it's, like I said, just like with the carbon-14, once the consumption of it stops, then the radioisotope will go away. Well, the child is born, grows up, is clearly eating things, and all the radiation from Chernobyl finally settled, so not an issue anymore. So it's like, okay, let's look at their bodies to figure out the radioisotopes in different places. And they were finding that the blend of isotopes that were found in the Achilles tendon matched that, as you would expect for this length of time, from Chernobyl. It's like, really? That doesn't change. But and also with the eye, they would see it with specifically the crystal lens. Your eye itself does change, okay? It is just the crystal lens in there. And then potentially also your teeth. But as I said, I'm actually not sure about teeth. But still, it's wild. Which technically would also mean then that if you go through a mutation, like what Kirk and Spock did, the Achilles tendon can't change, and the crystal in their eye can't change. Because those parts of the body that they don't regenerate, there is no cellular, is it mitosis? It has been a long time. But still, it's like that's actually kind of funny to think about. That is funny to think about, that if you had a mutation occur in a species, and we'll just assume that it's, like, fine, I'll just say humans. If you had a mutation that occurred in humans that altered the eye, that would potentially cause them to go blind just because if it is not compatible with the crystal lens. That's actually kind of funny to think about. Huh. Anyway, but going back to the original point, it takes a while for cells to be replaced in your body. But it's like, nope, we can just have that mutation happen instantly. And also, with that is the whole, this is a species that they stopped needing the mutation to be applied to them. Like, it was, how it was stated, they had multiple generations where the mutation had to be applied. And then it was just integrated into them. I don't know why you would think that the anti-mutagen would work on that. Because it's basically, you are now a distinct species from what you were prior to the mutation. The anti-mutagen isn't going to necessarily do anything there. You know what, actually though? Well, yes, I still don't think it would work, but it just occurred to me. Would it be a separate species? I don't know. It might not be. Because true, physically they had scales and such, so they looked different. But technically, if the mutation would focus just to the respiratory system and giving them gills and such, then the other aspects of their bodies might not change. So maybe they could actually be the same species, but just a different breed. Huh. That is an interesting thing to consider. And if we go back to the hormone thing that was talked about, as I mentioned, hormones trigger the cells of your body to just look to different parts of your genetic code to figure out what to do. Which would technically mean then that the hormone, if it is a hormone, I think they would the term is technically correct for what hormones do, but there's no way a hormone would achieve this because you would need the genetic information already there to trigger it. Okay. In theory, you could have a two-part. I am really going far afield on this, aren't I? In theory, you can have two steps to a mutation. The first being to edit the genetic information of the subject. So to insert the code you want. That would be very difficult because you would have to alter all of the genes in the body. Okay? Every cell contains your DNA. And so all of those would have to be changed. That's not happening. So that would be step one. Step two would be to release the hormone into the body that would trigger the body to start looking at that part of the genetic code, which why I would think to look there, I'm not sure about either, but let's just say we can hand wave that one away. So a mutation like that would be a binary solution. But it is also interesting to think about because in theory you could then have a science fiction story. Let's say a science fiction Bond type story where you have a Bond villain that has managed to introduce the genetic mutation throughout a species. Like, just putting something in their food, a virus or something in the food that would do that. It would take a while, but technically could do that over years. And then, okay, we need to introduce the hormone. That would very rapidly then it would trigger changes in those in the subject's bodies, in the species' body. It would trigger them. It would still take a while for it to take full effect. Although maybe you could also set it up so that it happens more rapidly, that it triggers massive levels of cellular cell reproduction. Cells. Is it mitosis? I hope it's mitosis. Let me just look. Yeah, mitosis. So in theory, you could do that. Huh. It is a little weird trying to think out, okay, what is a new Bond villain? And what could they do? Technically, yeah, you could do that. That would not, I mean, yes, it wouldn't be completely accurate, but it would be not unreasonable. It is I could believe even a biologist or genetic biologist, if seeing that kind of Bond movie would be like, that's not how that would work. It would work this way. And then it's like, actually, like writing in the details versus that's not how that would work. This pisses me off. You got it so wrong. It's like, I could see that. Huh. Anyway, I'm just trying to think now. Is there anything else to mention or just, bring up the next episode? Nope, nothing really coming to mind. I know, I may also quickly click that. Yeah, that's why I figured. No comments. That's fine. I'm just trying to think. Is there anything? Because I'm just also seeing the different clips I've put on here. Any of these that would be interesting? I mean, I probably could have used this one during the rant. That did not... I need to change that one, I think. It's Get On With It from Monty Python and Holy Grail. I think I just need to change that one. Because it didn't, start at the right time. It seemed to be, in the middle. It's like, yeah, I'll try to fix that. Well, no. I'll probably forget. I will do this, so I'm going to just remove it, though. So I can't accidentally use it. Which one is this? Oh, yeah. I don't want to hit that one. YouTube might not be happy. Solid 17. Very good movie. Love that movie. It's right here. Such a good movie. But clips from it. It's a World War II movie with Germans, with Nazis. They're making fun of stuff. They're mocking stuff. People used to have a sense of humor. YouTube does not. Simplest way to put it. But I'm ready. So yeah, next week will be 13th episode, produce, 16th to air, The Jihad. And I am curious. What is it? What is the actual storyline here? Because it's just that's a curious one to choose for the title. Team comprising various experts, Kirk and Spock among them, must recover an artifact known as the Soul of the Score. Theft must be kept secret or galactic holy war could break out. Okay? I mean, yes, a jihad is a holy war. And that is the translation. So it's like, okay, so they're just using it there. All right. I don't think you could make that episode today, though. It would bear with it a different connotation that most networks and such would not want to risk playing, probably. Yeah. All right. Pretty sure I'll see you next week. It might be the week after that. I don't know. Yeah. Should be able to do it next week. How many are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 left. Okay. Okay. And then, as I've said, I may stop. Just it's weird trying to watch one of these and then come on and talk alone. I mean, just think of it this way: I'm past an hour now. I could believe that if there was somebody else here, I would be talking less because they would keep me on track. There's like, Jim, what does it have to do with the episode? Nothing, but weren't you following how I got here? It's like, Jim, get back to it. Okay. Yeah. All right. I shall see you next time. Yes, end the stream. What? Okay. Quick question. Because this I really am curious about this. Why in Rumble Studio is the end stream button 2 clicks? Like you have to click once. I get the whole, hey, you gotta confirm. I get that. But it's just kind of annoying because it's like you can't just go and hit end stream. You have to hit it and then move. Need the confirmation is to say, I know I want to end it. I guess it would be. This is what I prefer. I hit end stream, right? And are you sure? Instead of it being are you sure, have it be counting down. Where it's like, give me a 3-second countdown. Where if I screwed up and I did not mean to click that, I can hit cancel, right? Or maybe 5 seconds. Let that be something you can put. That would be useful. That would be much better, I think, than just a, oh yeah, you have to do that. It's up here and then you have to go to the center of the screen and hit that. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make more sense?